thank you for your work. Thank the National Action Network, its members, board, and of course the Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church for hosting us. We gather here today to honor the enduring legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a man whose dream of justice and equality remains a guiding light for our time. While Dr. King is celebrated for his work in advancing civil rights, we must recognize his unwavering commitment to economic justice. It is a mission that he demanded and still demands action from all of us. Dr. King understood that the fight for racial and economic justice are deeply interconnected. In his powerful 1967 speech, "Where do we go from here?" he declared, quote, "We must recognize that we cannot solve our problem now until there is a radical redistribution of economic and political power." He boldly declared that equality means dignity, and dignity means a job and a paycheck that lasts through the week. He saw that true justice could not exist without addressing the structural inequities that too many people have now been trapped in. Cycles of poverty. Today, those inequities are growing. Both the wealth gap and the wage gap have widened dramatically, while economic opportunities are increasingly reserved for the privileged few, leaving millions of people behind. And we have to address that. Entire communities are trapped in cycles of poverty, unable to access the basic resources, education, and opportunities. And let's just remember that this trend is not accidental. It is the result of policies and systems that are designed to concentrate wealth and power in a few. Housing costs are increasing. Healthcare remains out of reach. Education, which was the great equalizer, has become the burden of debt for too many young people. These are not statistics. They're stories, real stories of struggle, stories of real people trying to survive in an increasingly unequal world. And in face of all of these realities, we see misinformation and disinformation, divisive narratives that distract us from the real solutions. And one of them, and the Rev has been talking about this for quite some time, is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Let's be clear, diversity, equity, and inclusion is not abstract. It's not an abstract ideal or an abstract principle. These are not corporate buzzwords. These are essential to building a fair and thriving society, in employment, in contracting, in every single sector of our lives. Diversity, equity, and inclusion actually creates opportunities for people of all backgrounds. It ensures that talent, innovation, and creativity are not limited by barriers of race, gender, and economic status. And the evidence is undeniable. Organizations that embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion perform better. They innovate more effectively. They solve problems with greater creativity. And when we exclude people, whether intentionally or through systemic bias, we lose not just their potential, but we collectively lose. We lose their strength. And yet, misinformation is increasingly clouded our collective understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have to make sure that we're not listening to the noise. We have to make sure that we know what the right sources are of information. Dr. King warned us against distortions. He reminded us that whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Excluding voices, limiting opportunities, and denying equity harms all of us, not just the individuals that are affected. We cannot allow disinformation to redefine the work. And over the next 4 years, there will be a lot of noise. There will be a lot of misinformation. And we have to make sure that we are focused. If we're going to honor Dr. King's legacy, we have to commit ourselves to the work of addressing injustices and misinformation that furthers those injustices. This is not easy work. All of you know that. The road ahead is going to be filled with distractions, partisan divisions, sensationalized media, debates that often sideline the voices of the most affected. Dr. King warned us about these distractions. He urged us to remain focused on the structural issues at the heart of injustice, to resist the temptation to settle for symbolic victories while systemic problems remain unaddressed. So what do you all do? How do we make sure that we're not being distracted? First, we have to educate ourselves. Make sure that misinformation is not thriving in our homes and in the homes of our loved ones. Sharing facts and stories about all of us who are affected. We have to also fight for economic policies that affect all of us, from fair wages to labor, from healthcare to diversity initiatives. Third, we can't just limit ourselves to Washington, D.C. Yes, we're in Washington, D.C., but we're fighting for economic justice all over this country and around the globe. In state houses, in local races, we have to make sure that we don't get distracted. And finally, we have to be willing to pull the accountability lever. We all have pocketbooks. We all have wallets. Let's use them. Let's use them to make sure we are advancing our communities. The Rev has been talking about this, and he will talk more about this, making sure that we are holding others accountable. When we open up our wallets and they don't respect us, we are furthering our own oppression. Let's not us be content with lofty ideals and empty promises. Let's make sure we're pushing for systemic change and challenge ourselves to see beyond the short-term goals and long-term vision for a just and fair society. Let us rise to this challenge. Dr. King has been dead for a long time, but he is alive in this room. He is alive in our spirit. We have to make sure we tap into that. We have to make sure that we strive for economic justice for all of us. Thank you.
God bless you. And of course, we want to thank God again for Reverend Al Sharpton for lifting up his voice for such a time as this. And of course, we appreciate so much and we need so much his leadership, and we need the National Action Network like never before. We want to welcome those of you from around the country. I happen to be from Chicago, the Windy City. And we, of course, have worked with Reverend Sharpton there in Chicago as he's come in many times and given us assistance. I want to say that this room today, no matter what else is going on in this town today, I want you to know this is where the action is. Somebody say, this is where the action is. And if we knew our history, we would know how true that is. Because while there are other mythologies about the country that are going to be exposed and espoused today, the truth is, when you look at the real history of America, Frederick Douglass, who walked among us in this space and who was honored in this room, is the real visionary of America as we know it. The real prophet of freedom. The real Lincoln and Douglas debates were not between Stephen Douglas and Abraham Lincoln, but between Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. It was Frederick Douglass who gave Abraham Lincoln the courage and the vision to save the Union by allowing African Americans to fight in the Union Army, and that 180,000 African American troops turned the tide and saved the nation. And that was Frederick Douglass. But not just for us, but being the good African Methodist Episcopal that he was. He had a vision that was larger than himself. And when you look at the history, it is not Thomas Jefferson, it is not George Washington, it is not the other signers of the Declaration of Independence who are the real visionaries of America as we know it, but it is Frederick Douglass who said we must have a new birth of freedom that now includes people from all over the world where they can come and realize their dreams, that all of God's children have a right to the tree of life. That vision of America is Frederick Douglass. The real founding father. And so that means that Elon Musk, who was born in South Africa, owes his citizenship to Frederick Douglass. Ramaswamy, who wants to run in the in crowd, owes his citizenship to Frederick Douglass. He was born in Uganda, by the way, do the research. Father made his money off the emerald mines in South Africa. And J.D. Vance's wife, with her pink coat on, owes her citizenship to the vision of Frederick Douglass, who gave us the vision of bringing us the tired and those yearning to be free. And so we are in the right place. We're in the right place. Let me be done. But beware of anybody who tells you that being woke is a bad thing. Can't trust you. Can't trust you. If you say being woke is a bad thing, somebody say it's good to be woke. It's good to be woke. And so when I was growing up, I'm done, but Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, that great prophet from Philadelphia, had an award-winning album, said, "Wake up everybody." And that's what we come to do with the National Action Network with Reverend Sharpton all over the country. Wake up everybody, make the old people well. Wake up everybody, educate the children. Wake up everybody, feed the hungry. Wake up everybody, clothe the naked. Wake up everybody and give hope to the hopeless. God bless you.
And now I have the honor of bringing forward the person, the individual, whose faith, vision, and works brought us here today. The person whose life and spirit is every day a present-day living example of the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Y'all know who I'm talking about, so I don't need to say much more. I present to you our fearless leader, the Reverend Al Sharpton.
No justice, no peace. What do we want? Justice. You may be seated. Several weeks ago, when it was announced that this inauguration of Donald Trump was going to take place on Martin Luther King Day, we decided in National Action Network that we would have our public policy forum on Saturday as our Saturday rally and be in Washington, because we want people to see the tale of two cities in one district. When Donald Trump was president before, he went in the Oval Office and he hung a portrait of his favorite president. His favorite president was Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was the president that nominated to the Supreme Court Judge Roger Taney. Judge Roger Taney was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court that rendered the Dred Scott decision that blacks had no rights that anyone was bound to respect. That is Donald Trump's hero. On this side of town, Martin Luther King Jr. gave his life, shed blood, and died to open up America for everybody, blacks, whites, gays, straights. It didn't matter. There's two different occasions in town. We're going to take an oath today that we're with Dr. King as he takes an oath to come back and bring Andrew Jackson into the White House. While I was on my way here, they said to me that President Trump called the mayor of New York late night, invited him to come down to the inauguration. I said, well, he should have called, because I got him in town anyway, Corey Weiss. Why should he call Corey Weiss if you around the country don't know? In 1990, there was a white female viciously beat, despicably raped in Central Park. New York police went and corralled 5 young black and brown men, coerced them into signing confessions, put them in jail. One of them others called us. We had just started National Action Network. We went and stood up for them. They called me everything but a child of God. Said that I was condoning raping and beating and demagoguery. But I stood up for them. And some 13 years later, a young man in his cell confessed his cellmate. He said, you ever heard of the Central Park 5? Cellmate said, yeah, I remember that. He said, you know, they didn't do that, I did. The cellmate trying to get favor to get himself out of jail early, told the warden, and they went and did the DNA check and found out the guy in the cell matched the dress of the bloodied woman that had been beaten. They had to therefore let it turn around and exonerate these 5 young men. Corey Weiss did 13 and a half years in jail for a crime he didn't commit. Others, 4 of them, time in jail. Donald Trump took out an ad in the newspaper and said, bring back the death penalty and execute these young men. And even when the city of New York said that we have to compensate them for the time they served that they were coerced into, he said, don't give them a dime. This summer, National Action Network took some of them on tour. And some of the political, they talk about they gave some money for it. No, we took money to bring them on tour to tell the country the Central Park 5 story. We endorsed no candidate. We wanted the folk to know what candidates were. So I thought the least I could do for Mr. Trump is bring one of the Central Park 5 to town. I'm sure he want to invite him. I want him to know Kerry Weiss is still alive. There is no death penalty. Raise your hand, Kerry Weiss. How are you, Mr. Trump, on Martin Luther King Day? Go pardon folks that beat up police officers. How are you, Mr. Trump, on the birthday or the federal holiday of a Prince of Peace and nonviolence, going to excuse those that caused death of Capitol Police in the nation's capital? How dare you, Mr. Trump? How dare you on King Day talk about making heroes out of haters? How dare you on a federal holiday for the man that brought the Poor People's Campaign to the United States, that you bring some tech billionaires to church this morning that need to be repenting for the disinformation and the sinful assimilation. If everybody else is scared of you, I wasn't scared of you in 1990, and I'm not scared of you now. The problem is, we got too many folks scratching where they ain't itching, laughing at what's not funny. We fought too hard. We shed too much blood. We spent too many nights in jail to think that Trump can turn us around. I wanted to be in Washington to let you know, so you didn't have to hear rumor. We're right here. We are not going back. Now, Donald Trump used to try, even after we marshaled him, act like he was going to be all different. He gave free offices to the Wall Street project of Reverend Jesse Jackson for a year. When I was head of Minister Vision Rainbow. Came to National Action Network's convention, 2002. Reporters don't do no research, they just write everything he said. Then he came back in 2006. Now he called me a racist and a con man. Well, was I a con man when you used to come to our convention? Was I a con man when you gave Jesse free office space? You will be whatever it is to put you ahead. But some of us are standing on the same things that we always stood for. And some of us are not going to change now. You got some, first of all, they lied and said they're going to get all the black men to vote for them. Look at the facts. That did not happen. But the fact of the matter is that under the 4 years that you were in before, George Floyd happened. Ahmaud Arbery was killed in Brunswick, Georgia. Breonna Taylor happened. You never stood up one time for justice for any of them. Never uttered a word of justice. And we got by, we built and had one of the largest gatherings in this district. We brought 200,000 people to the nation's capital around George Floyd. I call the march in a pandemic. You were right in the White House. We marched for Ahmaud Arbery. We convicted the police in George Floyd. We convicted the police in Ahmaud Arbery. We showed even under you we would fight and win anyhow. And we're going to fight these next 4 years no matter what you say. When he won in 16, he brought in more people to Congress and the Senate than he brought in this time. Though he got more votes, he brought in less coattails. So we got an easier fight. There ain't but 4 or 5 votes in the Senate between him and them, and ain't but about 3 in the Congress. They act like we don't know how to tell these people, y'all got to run for re-election and we'll come in there and deal with that. That's why we got people from all over the country that rode buses all night long. Some couldn't even come from the south that we had hired the buses because of the weather. But we said we coming anyhow. Because we don't want the only story coming out of Washington today that some billionaires went to church. Tell them some regular organizing people, black and white, Latino, gay and straight, came to Washington to church to put them on notice that we are not going to be turned around. Everything that Dr. King stood for is at risk with this president and this Congress. What is Dr. King known for? Standing up for economic rights, standing up for equal rights, standing up for civil rights. And all of that, this president, against women's right to choose, against equal rights for gays, against the whole question of diversity, equity, and inclusion. On the record. Against voting rights, wants and inclusion. On the record. Against voting rights, wants to bring it back. So it's not even about me against Trump. It's about him against Dr. King's principles. He said he wants to open up the files on Dr. King and Robert Kennedy and John Kennedy's death. Well, that is good. But you should also open up the books of Dr. King and read them.
Facts.
If you read Dr. King's book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, you would know why we needed diversity and equity and inclusion. Let me break one or two things down. I'll let y'all take the oath through. I know folk got to get on the road and start storing someplace again.
Take your time. Take your time.
When blacks were brought here in 1619, we were brought here as a result of slave trade. Slave trade meant that there was an economic arrangement. They justified it by dehumanizing who they traded. They traded some for some blacks by paying off others blacks in Africa. Am I right? So that's why it ain't just a black and white thing, because some black folks sold us out in the first place. And some blacks are still selling us out. They brought us here in 1619. The biggest ports of enslaved Africans was in Charleston, South Carolina, and New York. That's where Wall Street came from. They built the wall to protect the colonialists from the Native Americans. Named it Wall Street, they built it with free labor. Now, watch this. The Mayor McMorris, one of our board members, from 1619 on, we were here slaves. They didn't even write the Declaration of Independence and declare their independence from King George until 1776, which meant we had already been slaves 150 years before the country ever became independent. You worked us before there was a country. Not only did you work us, you broke us down. Took our families. Sold mama to Alabama. Sold daddy to Mississippi. Sold our brothers and sisters to North Carolina. Never to reconcile. And now you got the nerve to get on Fox talking about what happened to the black family. That's what happened to the black family. With no wages. It was against the law for us to read and write. If whites, because there were some whites that were always abolitionists. If they were caught teaching us how to read and write, they'd be prosecuted. And for all those years, we were in that circumstance. Then they decided they did not want the humiliation and the continuation of being called names in a world stage. And people started rising up. William Lloyd Garrison, a white from New England, and Frederick Douglass, a runaway slave. I was at a seminar a few years back, Reverend Acre, and everybody was talking about the talent that some of the slaves had to have. And I thought it was one of the most ridiculous things I ever heard, Bishop Mason, is that some folk talk about what kind of slave they could be, or some singing slaves, some dancing slaves, some eloquent slave. I ain't never wanted to be nothing but a runaway slave. We got into the 1700s, headed into the 1800s, and there was a division in the country between the North and the South. And Abraham Lincoln got elected president. And they began to separate the country. And they declared the South was going to secede and form the Confederacy. Now watch this. Lincoln said we must fight to save the Union.
Yes.
Garrison and Frederick Douglass said we need to end slavery. He said, no, this is not about slavery, it's about the Union.
Make it plain.
And they declared war and fought. Jefferson Davis became the president of the Confederacy, Abe Lincoln the president of the Union, and they fought for years, 5 years. And when they started losing at Shiloh and Petersburg, and start getting north, coming down the Potomac River where we near now, that's when Lincoln decided reluctantly, maybe y'all are right, I'll free the slaves in the South and let them join the Union Army. Y'all need to stop saying Lincoln freed the slaves freed Lincoln. Lincoln promised an Emancipation Proclamation, January 1st, 1863, that at midnight, slaves would be free. That's why, Sean, we have watch night service different than anybody else.
Yeah.
Because watch night was for us, whether at midnight, we'd be able to walk off the plantation. And when midnight struck, we walked off, but remember now, we walked off with no money. We'd worked for 246 years and never got paid. We had no education. It was against the law to read and write. We had no family structure because you broke up our family, named our children after yourself. We were standing there with nothing. The only thing we had was our ability to convene and congregate. That was the birth of the black church. Why are we in church today? Because all we had was the faith in God and the black church, and say, on this rock I'll build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail. We fought and won the Civil War. For 12 years, they had Reconstruction. They killed Lincoln. Andrew Johnson came back in, backlash. Killed Reconstruction, went all the way to Bletchley versus Ferguson, and said that blacks could be unequal. We were defeated not just because, as Reconstruction went in, they formed the Ku Klux Klan, White Citizens Council, but what turned us back and what reduced our humanity was not just the white supremacists in the white robes. It was the white supremacists on the Supreme Court in the black robes. They changed the laws and made Jim Crow legal. And therefore lynching became the order of the day. They lynched 5,000 blacks between the end of Reconstruction and the 1950s. They lynched more blacks after slavery than during slavery. Because they didn't kill us in slavery because they needed slaves. NACP was founded, Urban League founded early 20th century to fight slavery. And it was not until the mid-1900s, the mid-20th century, that we started getting some victories back. Adam Green Powell had a Harlem bus boycott. Thurgood Marshall won 54 Supreme Court decision. And then in 55, a thin, diminutive black woman named Rosa Parks sat down in the front of the bus in Montgomery, Alabama, and refused to give up her seat.
Well,
I know Trump gonna say all this don't mean. I spoke at her funeral. I knew Mrs. King. I work with mine. I think I know more about King than you do. I come out the King movement. You with the Don King movement. There's a difference.
there's a difference.
And she was arrested because the law was that she had no right to sit in the front. A black preacher in that town named Martin Luther King got with the other ministers. And Alfonso David, they said the law is against us. Society is against us. But one thing they cannot control is they can't make us spend our dollars on them buses. And they made up their mind that it was better to walk in dignity than ride in shame. It may be inconvenient, but I'd rather walk with my pride than take your low-down ride. Martin Luther King did not go into history singing hymns. He did not go into history making eloquent speeches. He could do both. He went into history because he taught the people in Montgomery and later people around the world, if we discipline our dollars, we would make folk understand they have to respect us and regard us. Donald Trump just said in his inaugural address that he is going to end DEI this week. He's going to put out his executive orders. You have all these corporations that are saying they're going to back up off DEI. And why do we have DEI? We had DEI because you denied us diversity. You denied us equity. You denied us inclusion. DEI was a remedy to the racial institutional bigotry practiced in academia and in these corporations. Now you want to put us back in the back of the bus. We're going to do the Dr. King Rosa Parks on you. We're going to call you out one by one, and we're going to shut you down.
I got liquor shops. I got like 6 minutes.
I've talked with Mark Morial of the Urban League. I've talked to others. We're putting together a council. I'm going to release the names this week. Alfonso David, for 90 days, they're going to do a study of what companies have pulled out of DEI.
Well,
and what companies have a small margin of profit. And we in 90 days are going to announce the 2 companies that we're going after. And we're going to ask everybody in this country, black, white, brown, gay, straight, woman, trans, don't buy where you are not respected. Donald Trump can't make us buy your stuff. The Senate can't make us buy your stuff. In the name of Dr. King, we're going to do what Dr. King did. Trump tweeted the other week, I'm a con man, don't call me the coin man. I'm going to stop the coins from dropping in the wrong place. Have y'all forgot who Dr. King was? Dr. King was a boycott. Dr. King shut down the bus company. We sit up here letting companies talk to us like we ain't got no leverage. Take the bass out of your voice. Talk to me like I'm a grown man. I'm sitting up watching the TV after I worked out this morning. Got Elon Musk and all them sitting up in church. Like we crazy. They gonna decide our fate. You didn't decide our fate in slavery. You didn't decide our fate with our grandmama sitting in the front of the bus. You must have forgot who we are. We are the ones that took everything you got and we still here. We're the ones that took bad food and made it soul food. We're the ones that do science and astrology. You don't know who you messing with. We built the country. Run any lie you want on us. You done everything you could to us, yet we still here. Ford asked me, well, what do you think about Donald Trump always taking shots at you? First of all, how could I be offended by a man with 34 felonies? I'm a minister. I pray with felons. I don't get into back and forth with them. So I want you to be ready and attentive in these 90 days as we go down the list. Now, in these 90 days, I'm going to start it in Harlem in a couple of weeks. Those companies that have come out and said, no, we're going to stand with DEI. I'm going to buy some National Action Network. We go pay for some of these, what do y'all call them when you go shopping? Gift cards. I think I'm gonna buy about 50, 100 gift cards and go to Costco. We're gonna support those companies that stand up and tell the truth. We're gonna change this argument. This ain't gonna be no over office argument, Trump. This is gonna be an argument in the streets. We're going to take it where it needs to be. We're going to go and shop with those that stand up for us and break those that don't. We ain't buying no electric cars, SpaceX, none of that stuff. No how, boy. I ain't trying to go to the moon. I'm trying to live right here in the district. So our plan that we want to roll out today, and I want to remind the media why Dr. King is in history, and that is what we're going to do, is what King did. Trump talking about he wants to build a society of colorblind. Dr. King told us to be proud of who we were. Why do we have to be colorblind? No, we can acknowledge each other's color and treat each other equally. Why do I have to act like you ain't who you are? No, be color conscious and then respect it and treat it equally. We were slaves because of color. We were segregated because of color. Now you're going to be blind? Don't be blind to my history. Equal out what you made unequal. He wants us to be colorblind because then they don't owe the equalizing out, Alfonso. As long as we got to deal with color, then you got to deal with the lack of diversity. As long as you don't deal with color, you got to deal with the lack of equity. But if we colorblind, we all the same thing. We're not the same thing. But we can be on the same page. Because the same people that don't like blacks, don't like browns, don't like gays, don't like women, we all got the same enemy. And we may not agree on everything, but we got to agree we got to fight this enemy together. Lastly, Reverend Al, Trump is powerful. Trump won by less than 2% of the vote. And we beat him before. I ain't never been scared of somebody that already whipped. Hey, he be talking some smack for the weeks out on me. It don't matter. What I'm saying to you is that don't let them hijack what Dr. King was about. I'm a product of that movement. I worked with his family. I was mentored by some of his aides. Dr. King was a fighter. Dr. King used economic leverage. Dr. King was a man that stood up for economic justice. And you can't celebrate Dr. King without celebrating what he stood for. And that's what we come today from all over the country, hundreds of us. And as we close, let me tell you this. That what made Dr. King as effective as he was is he believed in a higher power. One of the reasons Reverend Lamar, the pastor here, Reverend Lamar, is here. One of the reasons I asked Reverend Lamar to let us do this in this church is in this church. In 1895, they had Frederick Douglass's funeral.
Well,
on this church. This church. They brought Rosa Parks body. Bible said, remove not the ancient landmarks. I wanted us to make our oath right in the same rock that sent Frederick Douglass home, that sent Rosa Parks home. This is sacred ground. I us to stand in sacred ground and promise that we're not going to let nobody turn us back. Dr. King believed in a higher power. And every once in a while in history, we're tested. And Trump is nothing but a test.
A test, yeah.
He's a test to our collective communities. He's a test to whether we can get past our sectarian differences and our philosophical disputes. He's a test as to whether we can get past our egos on who gonna get the most time in the news or who got the biggest followers on social media. It's a test. And I end by, since Lamar's here, I gotta be biblical a minute. I don't want him to say I didn't respect his pulpit. I often talk about the story. There was the war between, the battle between the Philistines and the Israelites. And in those days, they used to get up the mail on two hills and send down one from each of the opposing armies. And they would duel, and whoever won, that was the winner. The Philistines had this particular year a giant, 7 foot tall, had a sword that was so heavy he had to have an armor-bearer carry. And he came down in the mid-place and challenged the Israelites. Said, send me one of yours, just send me one. He said, I'll make a deal with you. He said, if you kill me, whoever you send will be your slave. But if I kill you, then you become mine. And this big giant threatened him. He had all the power, he had all the strength. He appeared omnipotent. And all of the Israelites who've been trained in warfare, who've been to boot camp, who've been given the skills of war mason, but they was afraid to fight this giant. But there was a little boy. He wasn't even in the army. His daddy sent him to run an errand to his brothers. And while he was running the errand, he heard about this giant. And he said, who is this giant that defies the gods of Abraham and Isaac? If nobody will fight him, I'll fight him. His brothers told him, you be quiet. You can't fight. You ain't been to boot camp. You ain't had no training. He said, that's true. I'm just a shepherd boy. But I didn't have a degree in nothing else. But one day I looked up and a lion and a bear had grabbed my father's sheep. I didn't have a degree in lion fighting. I hadn't studied bear wrestling. But somehow I fought the lion and the bear. And the same God that gave me the strength to fight the lion and the bear, that same God will help me fight Goliath. I was in Harlem, minding my own business, but they tell me there's a giant that y'all swearing in today. And they tell me y'all scared to fight that giant. I ain't been to one of the Ivy League schools. I'm not as classy as some of y'all downtown, but I'm not gonna let them. I heard there's a giant that defies Martin Luther King. There is a giant that defies Frederick Douglass. I come to Washington with my slingshot. I'm not scared of that giant. I'm not scared of that giant. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. I can walk through the valley and shadow of death and fear no evil. He walks with me. He talks with me. He tells me I'm his own. one moment to stand and be at peace. I want you to think about what we're getting ready to do. I want you to think about, according to the Bible, when Moses went up to see the God of the Israelites, he ran into a burning bush. And the Bible said God spoke to the bush and said, take off your shoes. You're standing on holy ground. I call for y'all to come from all over the country to Metropolitan. But I want you to know you're standing on sacred ground. And as we get ready to take this oath, don't stand on the ground where Frederick Douglass lay. Don't stand on the ground where Rosa Parks lay. Unless you're going to really do what it is we committed to do. Because we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against wickedness, principality, wickedness in high places. I want everyone, if you're resolved, to just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, state your name, Al Sharpton, do solemnly commit that I will stand up and rise up in the name of Dr. King, in the name of Frederick Douglass, in the name of Rosa Parks, and I will defend equality for all, diversity, equality, inclusion, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, immigration rights. I commit, I take this oath that I will not become like those I'm fighting. I'm not for violence, but I will peacefully stand against those that want to bring us down. I commit this in the house of God on this sacred ground. So help me God. Congratulations. While you're standing, I want all the ministers to come. Let's join arms. When they would march in the South, I used to think it was a little too moderate for me. But as I read my history and got to know some of the lieutenants of Dr. King, I realized it took a lot of strength to face biting dogs, to face sheriff's net, sheriff's club, nightsticks, and somehow with no defense at all. They look at biting dogs in Birmingham and say, we shall overcome. They look at people with weapons and say, we shall overcome. They look at people that had the law on their side and said, we shall overcome. It took a lot of courage to look at Bull Connor in the face and say, deep down in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome. Oh, it's a big day for the right wing. They celebrating and they're going to have their little inaugural parties tonight, but we shall overcome. They got their billionaires, but we got the God of the universe. Show you God is in charge. They plan the parade, but God controls the weather. We shall overcome. Let us sing it.
Ain't gonna let nobody see
marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land.
blessed today? Listen. We need all our buses, all our chapter leaders. We would be missed to leave here this afternoon, but now to hear from our pastor, Pastor Lamar, with us. So we want to hear from the pastor, let him give our benediction. All of our bus leaders from around the country, thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to, as Reverend Sharpton shared, our work has been cut out for us. Let's go to work. Come on, Pastor.
Beloved, we thank you for making this holy place all the more holy by your presence. Not only is Frederick Douglass here, but Ida B. Wells was here. Not only was Ida B. Wells here, but William Edward Bernhard Du Bois was here. Not only was William Edward Bernhard Du Bois here, but Booker Taliaferro Washington was here. Not only was Booker Taliaferro Washington here, but the great Asa Philip Randolph was here, the greatest American socialist. Not only was he here, but the one who said that God is a Negro, Henry McNeil Turner, was here. And that was yesterday. We are a Sankofa people. We look back to go forward. Now you are here. Now we are here. Are you ready to fight? Are you ready to fight? Are you ready to organize? Are you ready to beat this giant? Are you ready to slay this dragon? Beloved, the last word today goes to a black woman. Don't you think that's the right thing to do? To give the last word to our sister. The last word today comes from our ancestor, Lucille Clifton. And you and I need to memorize this for the days to come. Title of this benediction, this blessing, this poem is, Won't You Celebrate With Me? Won't you celebrate with me? What I have shaped into a kind of life. I had no model born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see except to be myself? I made it up here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Listen, come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. Every day something has tried to kill us and it has failed. It failed yesterday, it failed today, and it will fail tomorrow. Go in peace to fight the good fight.
Thank you everybody for joining. Follow for more videos like this, and make sure to follow the Black Wall Street Times as well. I'll leave it live for a few more minutes. Make sure you follow so you can keep more content like this on your lives.
Testimony. We need everyone, please, we need you to board your buses. We need everyone who came on buses to please go board your bus at this time so you can leave before the weather gets bad. Please, if you came on a bus, please go board your bus.
Make sure to follow the Black Wall Street Times as well. We'll be covering all kinds of events and more activity throughout the year. There's still 1.2 right now. Yeah.
Yeah, now TikTok, like now I go on TikTok and it's just the white.
Weird. I'm glad it works. Thanks for joining everybody. Make sure to follow for more. Follow Black Wall Street Times as well. Yeah, that was awesome. I hope you all enjoyed that. That was really powerful and really optimistic to start our week. Happy MLK Day.
join the group.
Absolutely.
Later, like, look at this building right here. Like, this is where people, this is us. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just so happy to see this again. It's inspiring.
Thank you all for joining. I'm going to cut the live pretty soon. I'll get it for a few more minutes as I kind of clear out here. But make sure to follow for more content, and also make sure to follow the Black Wall Street Times. If you're not aware, I am the Chief Marketing Officer for the Black Wall Street Times. I'm here with our reporters helping cover the events for the weekend in DC. The link for our website, if you type in the Black Wall Street Times on Google, you'll find it. But street is spelled ST in the website. And you can find the Black Wall Street Times on all platforms, including TikTok. Here's one of our reporters. Make sure to follow In Depth with Dion's podcast as well. New episodes coming out soon. I appreciate all the shares and the engagement, everybody. Help spread the word for the Black Wall Street. Make sure you follow, and we'll be going live throughout the year with all kinds of events and covering whatever's going on, especially when it comes to oppressed and marginalized people. In Depth with Dion, spelled D-E-O-N. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate the gratitude. Happy MLK Day. Or in the links in my profile. Thanks again for following. And one last plug, make sure you follow our team at the Black Wall Street Times. Some amazing reporters, very passionate team. Thank you all very much. I'm going to go ahead and cut this live pretty soon. Last chance to follow. We have 400 people still in here, so if all of you followed, that much more to our community. And make sure to join us for our next live. Once again, I appreciate it, and everybody have a good MLK Day.